I just wanted to mention a couple of things. We've got a lady with us tonight whose birthday, in fact we've got two ladies whose birthday is tomorrow. So we can just give a round of applause for Liz, who's actually called Liz. Should I say how old you are?
Yes.
82 tomorrow. And it's also Lorraine's birthday tomorrow. She's not 82. I won't tell you what it is.
Excuse me, can I just say, and also on Sunday and Monday, Ian and Andrew's birthday. They're not 82 either, I know they're
combined age, you know.
That's stretching.
Okay, anyway, tonight we've got fantastic speakers with us tonight. Over here, Darren Deojee. And Darren lives in Manchester. He works in mental health. When he said he was in mental health, we weren't sure whether he was an inmate or a worker.
A bit of both.
A bit of both. Darren's here to put his own view on a very, very interesting subject tonight, which is the God thing. I'm not going to try and explain what he's talking about, because I can't. Only Darren can explain that. So, Darren, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I feel like I'm a bit of the birthday week speaker now. So, birthday, everybody's birthday is in the coming week. If anybody else you don't tell them happy birthday too. Feel a bit of a pressure on now. No, not at all. Yeah, thank you for the introduction. Yeah, my name's Darren. I live in Manchester with my good lady. We're having our first baby in a few months, so it's all hands to the pump at the moment. So, I'm getting as many talks in now as I can, because I know for the first 6 months afterwards there won't be much happening. I'll be at home or working, that's it. Now, I didn't want to, I never over prepare my talks. I always just scratch a few more notes down. You might see me scribbling down, and then I write them down and then I never look at them. Because I really always like to do things based on the biofeedback of the group, on you guys, how we're getting along in the talk itself. And then I don't like to script my talks, because every time I come and do them, I'm different. You know, I've moved on a little bit, even if it's just by a few days. And I don't like always then having to rush back and check notes and all this sort of stuff. So I might check the notes, but it's just to try and keep me on thread. So if I lose my thread, I might have to ask you where I got lost. Now tonight is a bit of a big subject. I don't normally jump into the subject. I've only started doing it this year. Normally I would only cover tonight's talk after a workshop or two where people have committed to a day or more. But consciousness seems to have moved on enough now that we're just flinging it out there and seeing how people get on with it. So I hope you all get something out of tonight. Now I wanted to just say a little bit about what I do, because I probably do about between 40 and 50 different talks. I do about 7 or 8 different workshops. They are all very, very different but related. They're all equally powerful and very unusual. So it makes it very difficult to promote them. It makes it very difficult for people to make an informed choice to come along to something like this. So you all have different reasons as to why you came along tonight. But you'll find out by the end of the night that you'll all got something completely different out of it. So tonight's subject is a big one. Obviously, it's about this idea of this God thing, which is obviously very big. But I also do events on perception, on language and sound, on gender, relationships, social understanding and evolution. I also, anybody here into free man, lawful rebellion stuff at all? Yeah, I've got my own branch on that, which is to do with understanding entitlement and title. And we've got a group now setting up a public trust organisation to try and I don't like lawful rebellion or the free man movement. There's great stuff in it, but for me, we're not the rebels. You know, our public servants are. And you know, free man movement is very much about washing your hands of the state, whereas I like people in the community to have access to things like libraries and swimming pools and things like that, even though I don't use it. So our method is about fixing the public service, picking out the people who are being obnoxious, being unhelpful, things like that, and taking them on. So that's really interesting. If anyone's interested in that, I've got a separate mailing list for that you can come and pop your name down on at the end, and that's really doing a lot of movement at the moment. So I'll do a wrap up at the end where I'll cover it all again and let you know what's happening. The The events that I do are kind of different because they focus on things which are so fundamental to our everyday operation in the world that we don't pay attention to how much awareness and power is locked in them. So perception, language, gender. These things are switched on from the second you wake up in the morning to the moment you go to bed at night. As soon as you open your eyes in the morning, you know that you're in a room, you know that what colour the walls are, things like that, you're able to speak, all these things. But locked inside these things we take for granted and that are just there all the time is massive power and awareness, lots of it. Now we have this sort of idea in the West, or this sense of a current here in the West, that there's something wrong with our culture, there's something wrong with our kind of society, that if we want some kind of authentic path to growth, or if we want an authentic spirituality or anything like that, that we have to either import it or dredge it up from the past. So we're picking in systems from India, from China, from Hawaii, from wherever. We're dredging up the Druidic practices and the Wiccan practices and things like that, which is great. There's lots in that. It connects with us at a deep level. But that is not what traps our awareness. That is not what limits our idea of ourself and our capacity in the world. You don't find enlightenment on triangles and squiggles on a 4,000-year-old tablet because it has no effect on you. It has no effect on your awareness. It has no effect on your conditioning. What we're going to look at tonight is an aspect of language which is the thing which limits us, because it's our ability to express ourselves, to share our internal experience. That is what makes our world, that's what makes our kind of our sense of interaction. And if we can't come to terms with how we're experiencing things and turn that into something out in the world, then we're going to be stuck. We're just going to have more and more information, and it'll just be all these nodding, knowing smiles. Oh, you don't have to say. I know what you're talking about. Words don't go there, sort of thing. And what we're going to look at tonight is how that is just not the case. So normally I kind of will cram this talk into an hour or so, but I think we have a bit longer tonight, so I'll give you a bit of the background on this. So sound is a subject that years ago when I was saying to people come along to an event on sound or language, people were like, well, so what? What's interesting about that? So we're going to start off with a bit of a word group to give you a sense of what is interesting about it. Okay, so can everybody see this okay? Well, when I move out of the way you might be able to, yeah. Just be careful I don't knock it off as well. Okay. Just hum to yourselves a moment. Okay, this is our first word group. Right. Can people see that? I'll read it out for you. The first word is universe. The second word...
Because I can't see.
That's alright. If I wiggle a little bit, that might help. So, the first word is universe. The second word is, or words, is Big Bang, as in the Big Bang Theory. Third one is the word, as in the beginning was the word. Then we have in tune, and then we have atonement. Okay, so first of all, so what? What's interesting though about this word group is that they're all words to do with sound, every one of them. So universe, if I break this up here, we have uni and verse. Uni implying one, or unified, and verse, which is a part of a song, isn't it? Big Bang Theory. When we were taught the Big Bang Theory, we were given this sense of an explosion of matter. But a bang, first and foremost, is a sound. First and foremost, a bang is a sound. You don't need an explosion of matter to have a bang. The word, in the beginning was a word. A word is always about sound, isn't it? Because it's a word, quite literally. In tune is about sound, tuning things in, radio and such like. And atonement. Now, atonement has been broken up. I mean, I do lots of stuff on science and sound. I'll talk about that a bit in a bit more detail later. But this word has been broken up a lot in recent years to at-one-ment. Has anybody seen that before? Atonement is at-one-ment, the state of being at one. Very nice, it's lovely. But we don't say at-one-ment, do we? We say atonement. Atonement, the state of being atoned. Yeah? Okay, so these are all, everybody in agreement that these can all be construed to be about sound. Yeah? Okay. The other thing that's interesting about this word group is they all represent ideas or concepts which are at the limit of our ability to conceive or express ourselves. They are at the limit of our ability to conceive or express ourselves. We cannot conceive of what is beyond the universe. All we do is stack them up. So, okay, well, beyond the universe there may be another one, and then another one, and then we've got a multiverse, and let's just keep building them. But our biggest conceptual unit is the universe. These two are both different theories of creation. Yeah? Big Bang, the word. We can't conceive of what was before creation. Again, all we do is say, well, you know, the theories are, well, maybe there was another manifestation experiment like this one. But we can't actually conceive of it. We don't have a coherent idea about that. Okay. What's interesting though is both these things are saying the same thing. They're saying in the beginning there was a sound. Okay. In tune and atonement, yeah. These are less to do with concepts, these are to do with our experience and how we relay our experience. So you can have the most fantastic, internal, uplifted, spiritual experience going. Wonderful, fantastic. How do you share that? What language do you use to convey it? What are the tools at your behest to convey that massive experience you had, and yet all you can really do is just give these fragments to people? But often folk will use terms like, I was dead in tune. I was all connected. I felt connected to everything. It was at one moment. Yeah? So what's interesting about this is that we seem to be using words related to sound at the limit of our ability to conceive or express ourselves. And what I'm suggesting to you at the moment, which for you is just a theory and for me is a fact, because this is just the very, very beginning of something very, very big, and that is that if at this limit of our ability to conceive or express ourselves we're using terms related to sound, then perhaps by understanding sound in more detail we can move beyond these barriers, beyond these limitations. And I'm saying to you tonight, that is indeed the case. This is not information for you to add to your catalogue of things, of state control and different things like that. This is something about our fundamental building block of our building blocks of our mind. So the stuff that I do, I like to call it mental healing, because the mind is something that's been very, very left out in recent centuries. We seem to think it's okay. So we're very, very aware and tuned in and connected, there's that word, tuned in, to problems with our physical body and physical health. There's loads of information out there about things that are bad for your body, good for your body, food you should eat, food you shouldn't eat, things you should do exercise-wise, loads of it. And there's loads of methods for approaching healing the physical body. Very well accepted, been around for ages. The last century or so has seen a massive boost in acceptance of the concept of an emotional self, or an emotional body, and the fact that we can be emotionally well or unwell, and that we can in fact then work on healing our emotional, our emotional state. And that's had more and more acceptance in the last century. But still, at events that people go to, they can be told to leave their mind outside, to just let themselves have the experience. And then you've got to go and pick that mind back up again. It gets left out, it gets sidelined, because we don't really understand it. We don't really have a grip of it. We don't know what it is really yet. And the awakening that we're going through just now as a species is one of mental awakening. It's one of being able to move beyond being driven by our emotional desires and being in that play of just sort of like what came forth after the birth of, I suppose it's been a good few thousand years at least, that we've been driven primarily by our emotional centre. But now, as evolution's moved on, we're on this journey through the centres. Those of you who are familiar with the chakras, we're on this journey from purely being focused on physical survival, then being driven by emotional urges and all the rest of it, and now we are becoming mental, hence mental health. But this is so left out. What we tend to get in terms of approaching mental healing in general is we get given more ideas. So you get lots and lots of good ideas in books, brilliant. You get lots of information about what's going on in the world, fabulous. But all that does is make our mind bigger. It doesn't heal it, it doesn't fix it. If there's something wrong with its framework, then we're a bit stuck. Now, so this stuff, this is like the doorway into like what I talk about mental healing, because it's not triangles and squiggles on 4,000-year-old tablets that are limiting us, it's these squiggles. That's all they are. Okay? You imagine you're going for a walk, you're going out camping for the weekend, and you get set up away from civilization, you park up, leave the car behind you, tent on your back. You go and set up the tent, go out for a walk, you don't see a human being for miles. Half a day goes by, you still don't see anybody. Come to the edge of a woodland, and you see these 4 squiggles. S-T-O-P. What do you do? No matter who you are, it will have an effect. Unless it's in a language you don't understand. If it was this, you'd ignore it. Has no meaning to you. But this does something to you. There you are, this multi-dimensional, divine being of awareness, toddling along a field, and these squiggles can make you doubt yourself. Can make you stop. That's just 4 of them. Okay? We're going to delve a little bit more into how powerful these are. You know, I talk about we spell all our words because all our words are really spells. Okay? Words are spelled for a reason. What is a spell? A spell is a word or series of words of magical effect. What's magical effect? You think about something that somebody said to you that was hurtful in the playground all those years ago. For you, a lot more years ago than for me. You won't be able to remember them. They'll still be there. You think about that. You think about the effect that had on you when somebody said something horrible. How that can stick with you, affect the way you think about yourself, treat yourself, behave to others. For years, that has a magical effect. You think about what it's like when somebody said to you, "You look so good today. You did really well at that. I really appreciate what you just did." And how that feels. That can stick with you for a while too. We tend not to remember them as well though, do we? But it's a magical effect. Words can be used to uplift, enlighten, guide, heal, but they can also be used to contain, mislead, deceive, trap. And that's what we're going to be looking at tonight, is some of the words which have been used to trap our awareness, to mislead us. But we can't get out of it, we can't get out of this mental framework unless we understand how it works. And when we're just feeding new ideas into our mind, all we're doing is making the walls and the ceiling of our reality bigger. It's not changing it. This stuff is getting into the bricks and mortar and dismantling it, and then getting back that raw awareness that went into it in the first place. That's mental healing. Okay, so to show you how significant sound is to us as humans, I'll just give you another couple of words that we use all the time. What do we call these body parts in here?
Organs.
Organs. What else is an organ? It's a musical instrument. What do we call it when I rot away? When I'm dead? I decompose. Decompose. Compose yourself. Pull yourself together. Composing yourself. We are all involved in the actual process of composing ourselves. That's what we're doing all the time. The only thing you are responsible for in this life is your conduct. It's the only thing you're responsible for. You can't be responsible for anything else other than your conduct. But that doesn't just mean your physical body, it's your feelings, it's your thoughts, it's all of it. Conduct, musical term. We refer to a building which is stable and secure as being sound. Or if it's in Scotland, when I was growing up, if there was somebody you really liked, you could say, he's sound. Yeah? And what else? There's loads. And there was one other one to do. Volume, for space. So we refer to space as having volume. Yeah? So we're using sound in sound-related terms, which are obviously sound-related terms. We all use them, we don't think twice about it. But we're using them in some very strange places. And it's because sound is very fundamental to us as humans. And that's why we name things like this. I mean, I do this stuff on the science of things. This is just scratching the surface. There's lots of levels to this. There's looking at just words, then there's looking at characters themselves, and then you can look at the shapes beneath that. We'll get onto that at the end of this. But there are rules that we use to when we're naming things. As I was saying to Andrew and Tracy over dinner, most of the things that we learn in this life are the result of someone's interpretation. Yeah? So we get an interpretation on something, and you might learn a model that you can then use. But then you might find that it doesn't quite fit your world, you can only use it sometimes and not others, and it's only good for certain situations, and it's because it's just an interpretation. But there are certain things which are standard for us as humans. It doesn't matter where you are, what language you speak, or whatever. And it's things to do with how our vehicle, our human vehicle, processes things. And processing comes before interpretation. Interpretation is the result. Okay? So an example for you. You might both look at that chair, we might look at that chair and I might say, that's red. You might say, well, that's ruby red. Okay? Slightly different interpretation. We might walk down the street and smell a flower and I might say, that's a lovely smell. You might say, well, I don't really like that smell. We're getting the same smell, we're interpreting it differently, it has a different effect on us. But the manner in which your brain receives the information about the smell, and the manner in which your body processes that smell, that is the same. It's the same. If I hit my leg, I might say, that didn't hurt me very much. If I hit your leg in the same way, you might say, ow. We've interpreted it differently, but the manner in which the signal went from your leg up to your brain is the same. And the manner in which we use sound as humans is the same. Across languages. So I do stuff about decoding languages and alphabets and how to look at languages in a new way. Because the way we're taught them is tables next to each other. That's not it. That's not how it works. That's not how we learnt it. And to prove this whole science of sound thing, what's really interesting is, okay, let's look at these. Big Bang and the word. Right? So in the beginning was the word, years and years old. They're saying, it's almost like you had these theologians, going, okay, what's this concept of the beginning, right? What is it? What is it? Oh, it's a sound. It's a word. It's a word. We're going to say it's a word. And you've got these scientists who don't really want anything to do with the religious bunch. And they're like going about their own way, looking at, particles and objects and making things blow up and things like that. And they're like doing the same thing. They're like probing for that beginning. What is it? What is it? It's a bang. It's going to be a bang. But they're not the only ones who said in the beginning there was a sound. Okay, so this is recent. 50, 100 years. This is older. But there's one much older, 7,000 years old, the Hindus, over in India. They said in the beginning there was a sound, and they said it was a word, and that was 7,000 years ago. And they even said what that word was. Anybody want to tell me what the word was? They said it was Om. Okay, now there's lots of ways to write Om. I'm going to use the most modern way, which is this. You may have also seen it as this, or the moon-like squiggly bit that I can't really do, so we're going to go with this for now for a reason, but okay, Om. So what's interesting about Om is that they say that not just in the beginning was the word and it was Om, but they also say the fundamental building block of the universe is the Om. Behind all of manifestation, you will find Om. Okay? What is it that Western science says is the fundamental building block of the universe? What is it that builds everything up?
Atoms.
Atoms. Atoms. Atom. Clearly implying the state of Om. And what I'm saying is this is not an accident. It looks like it's just a quirk. A quirk of, oh, isn't that amusing, isn't that coincidental? It is not a coincidence. These are branches that did not talk to each other. They weren't even interested. Completely different branches of human endeavour came to the same conclusion. The same conclusion.
Meditation word,
That's what we're talking about. That's exactly it, yeah. But what I'm saying is nobody knows what an Om is. Some people say, sit and do this song with the sound. Oh, yeah, brilliant. I love it. And I do sound work, so don't worry, I'm just being casual about it for the sake of this. Most people don't know why they're sitting there doing this sound. They don't know what it means. It has no meaning to them. But what I'm saying is this gives us reference. Because we're evolving. Human beings are evolving. It's about piecing knowledge together now. Just about everything is there for us to find if we want to go and dig it up. It's about piecing it together to seeing what's revealed. But we're not looking for patterns in the right places. And this is a pattern that actually has significance. And like I said, we're only, 15, 20 minutes in. This is stuff that, you can come along and do workshops for weeks on. This is the surface of something and nothing more. So atoms is not an accident. It's about the fact that there are rules and there's a science to this. And it's really interesting. But I would say that, wouldn't I? Let me just get my wiper. Okay, so obviously we've not really said much about God yet, have we? So, just double check and say maybe it's about time. Okay, yeah. We'll come back to this in a bit. Tonight isn't really about the science of sound. I wanted to do that to give you a bit of a background to this. Obviously, there is one thing that is beyond our idea of universe and Big Bang and creation and all this stuff. There's one concept we have which was there before creation and which does stand outside the universe. What is it? The concept of God. Now what's interesting is this concept has got a bit tired in recent years, this God thing. People don't really like it anymore, do they? You know, it's a funny one. I've got an event about this, searching for this God thing. Even though I put it in brackets and I try and make it clear that it's not actually about the traditional idea of God, people still don't turn up. I don't mind, don't know what else to call it, you know. Well, actually I do, but they're not interested in that title either. So, God is the only concept we have that's outside all of that. But there's something wrong with this idea of God. Because if you think about human history, and you think about us looking for things, no search in human history has had the resources devoted to it than the search for this God thing. Nothing. Collective endeavour, personal effort. More people have applied themselves to the search for the divine, God, Brahma, whatever they called it, whatever name they gave it, it's had the most oomph put at it. So you would think by now, after all the millions of people and all the thousands of years, that we would have been able to find something and collectively agree the fact. So yes, we have pockets of people who agree on different ideologies, but there isn't a collective agreement on anything there. Conceptually maybe, but nothing that we have a language for. So, really there's something wrong with that, because either it means we are rubbish at searching, means we're rubbish at it, and personally, I think the evidence would say that's not true, because if you look at everything else humans have applied themselves to, we've done pretty well. We've done alright at it. We've done pretty well at learning to manipulate matter, learning to understand our bodies and the framework of the world that we're living in. We've done an alright job at that. So what's wrong here? Well, if we're not rubbish at searching, then there's only one other possibility. And that is that our idea of this God thing is somehow flawed. That the subject or the object of our search is skewed somehow. There's something wrong with it. It's not pointing to the right place. And I'm going to tell you tonight that's exactly, there is something wrong with it. It is, for starters, it refers now to, it's meant to refer to everything at the same time, isn't it? Whereas really now it's become more of an archetype, more like a Zeus type figure, setting up on high, with human qualities and all the rest of it. But we'll get onto that in just a second. To understand how this is skewed, we need to have a look a little bit at how words work for a moment. So let me just get rid of this, and we'll come back to it. Okay, so Buddha used to say that words were signposts. I've never spoken on a mic to a whiteboard before without anybody there. It's very strange. So yeah. Buddha used to say that words were signposts, yeah. And he meant it quite literally. They are indeed signposts. So let's get rid of this, and I'll give you an example. Trying very carefully not to knock it over, it's just on chairs there. Okay, so he said that the words were signposts. So I'll give you an example. It's difficult with the microphone in my hand. I'll have to point to the microphone. Okay, so I can point to this microphone like this. And if you're a human being anywhere on this planet, you will know I'm referring to the microphone. You might not know what it is, but you'll know that I'm pointing to it. But I don't have to point, and I can say microphone. And you'll know I'm referring to the microphone. Yeah? Even if there's no microphone there. I can say microphone. And you'll think of what a microphone is. So the word acts like a signpost to the idea for you. Now, it's dead easy in the physical world, because I can be pointing to the chair, and if you're like, what are you pointing to? I'll be like, The chair, man, I'm talking about the chair. You can really support it, you can back it up just by touching the thing, the object itself, or drawing it, or rendering it, or something like that. But what happens when we move beyond the physical? If we move to the next level, the next body after physical, which is the emotional? Well, I'm going to say it's emotional, if you want ideas. For simplicity, we'll say it's the emotional. So if I want to point out that I'm feeling happy or sad, where do I point?
Your heart or your mouth?
Heart is what most people say. Now, and somebody always says the heart. You know, they'll point here. But that doesn't actually point out to you how I'm feeling. It just points out to you that I might be trying to convey the fact that I'm feeling something. And you can't tell the difference between whether I'm trying to tell you I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm, you know, whatever, just by me doing this. Okay? But because it is the second body, we have a support tool that will help you know how I'm feeling. It kind of helps point it out for you. Anybody want to tell me?
Smiling.
Smile, yeah.
So what's smiling part of?
Happy.
Eyes, yeah. What are these all part of?
Head.
Head, face. Facial expressions. Facial expressions are exactly it. Facial expressions can point out to you how I'm feeling no matter what I say. So I could be sitting there like this. You may say, oh, what's wrong? And I'll say, sorry?
The upturn of the mouth.
Yeah, well, all of it. Tears. I mean, if I'm sitting there going, you're going to know that there might be something up. There's the whole gamut of facial expressions. All of it. Little twitches of the eyebrow. We convey phenomenal detail with very, very small facial expressions. You can get by a lot just by, you know, a bit of an acknowledgement. It's incredible how much communication we can have with just our face. Now again, if I'm sitting there and I've got this glum face, and you say, how am I feeling? And I say, I'm fine. Fine. We've all done it. Now what we've done is, we've used that spell, that word, that signpost, to point you away from how I'm really feeling. Even though you can read the clear signs and say, well, you know, your words are pointing this way, but your face is pointing this way. Which is it? So we all try and control our inner space that way. We try and control how much people see about how we're feeling all the time. By making things up. By misleading people all the time, so that we're in control. Okay, so that's the emotional body. That's a whole world by itself. But then what happens if we move on? What happens if we move to the next body? The mental body, the mind. If I'm trying to talk about things which have only mental substance, like morality, existentialism, philosophy, politics, they're all very, very mental. Where do I point to support that? Try to point in politics to you.
Head, maybe.
Doesn't matter where I point. Doesn't matter whether I'm crying or laughing. Unless I am using the correct words in the correct order, you will not know what I mean. You will not get the point. Now there's a few turns of phrase. So I want you to get into I want to get across to you that you know, I refer to them as bodies because they are bodies in their own right. They have their own substance, they have their own quality. They are often in conflict with each other. So your emotions might want a bar of chocolate, but your mind might say, no, we don't live like that, mate. But then the emotions take over for a bit. Find yourself tootling on down to the garage or the shop, bar of chocolate in hand, munch on down on it. Emotional body's happy, it rests, up comes the mind. Why did you do that? So weak, it's going to make us fat. Whatever. We have this conflict between our aspects of self all the time. But these are spaces that we navigate all the time, every single day. So, terms like, I don't see what you mean. Where are you going with all of this? I have a different point of view. I can't see your point. These all refer to distance, location, direction. They refer to a spatial awareness. To a space, mental space, that we all share. And that's where these signposts come into their own. So what happens is, so can anybody tell me, I'm just pointing over my shoulder, these signposts, there's none there. Wipe them off. Okay, I'll put them up in a moment. So really what I'm doing when I'm talking, so I do a lot of stuff about living words and the oral tradition, because they're much, much more powerful than any word, any spells written on a page. Because the human vehicle can use lots of tools. I can use eye contact, I can use intonation, inflection, gesture, timing. I can adapt based on whether I see I've still got you or not, if I go back over something. That's eminently more powerful than just handing you a book. Now, it's because of we cast these spells up into this mental space that we're all navigating all the time. So have you ever found yourself listening intently to somebody, but you're actually looking into near space? You're not looking at any object and you're like, yeah, I can see what you're talking about. No, I don't see what you mean. Everyone familiar with having done that at some point in their life? Everyone? That is when you're navigating these spaces. It doesn't matter what's in the room around you when you're navigating that. You're just not aware of it. It's in what I call your pre-conscious, but it's right there and you use it all the time. Every one of us does. Okay, so can anyone tell me what meaning is? What does meaning mean?
Interpretation.
Yeah, okay, that's alright. Okay, anything else to add to that?
Definition.
Definition. Okay, yeah.
Understanding.
Understanding. That's certainly the result of meaning, yeah.
Also.
Sorry?
Thought.
Thought? Meaning, no, I wouldn't say, because you can have a thought that doesn't have any meaning.
No.
Yeah, I have plenty of them. Sorry?
Evaluating.
Evaluating, yeah. Okay.
Value.
So I want you to think slightly differently now and say, okay, I'm casting up these signposts, these spells, using all these different things to point something out, to point out a perspective. And just say the object that I'm trying to point to is that bullseye. Meaning, I want you to think mathematically for a moment. What is the mean in maths?
Average.
The average. You're assembling the average of where these words are pointing to see if you can see my point. Can you see what I mean? Can you see the meaning of my words? Can you see the average? Can you see what they're pointing to? Now what's really interesting is that we all know when somebody is talking about something that they don't know anything about. Because you can spot it in seconds. And you're just like, oh, this is pointless. Look at that word, pointless. It's not pointing anywhere. And you know it. We have a term for it, stabbing in the dark. Because they're just chucking the words up, hoping they land somewhere. Hoping that they might, listen to a few politicians. That's a good example of stabbing in the dark. Okay? So, meaning is actually a very, very powerful thing. And when you understand, when you get the point, there we go. If you get the point, if you understand what I mean, you arrive in a little position a lady referred to earlier. You'll end up in the position of understanding. And when you understand something, when you really understand something, you can point it out to anybody. It doesn't matter what their starting perspective is. It doesn't matter what their belief is, what their practice is, what their attitude is. If you understand, you can meet them halfway and you can point it out. That's why most of us can be quite honest in saying that we don't really, truly understand that many things. We can't point it out to anybody. Normally we have to be in groups of what we call like-minded people, don't we? We want to be in like-minded people because it facilitates easier interaction. All this stuff of meaning and pointing things out is much, much easier and less frustrating than when you're with people who have a different perspective or a different point of view, because the effort involved in pointing it out to them is greater. And we're creatures of habit, we don't want to have to work that hard.
Isn't it about having things in common?
Yeah,
Things
it is. No, definitely. And it's also about feeling, it's about feeling part of something, it's about community, it's about that very, very deep-seated need of, that deep-seated need to belong, really. Now, when we're talking about this idea of this God thing, it represents man's highest search for meaning. Search for purpose, search for place, a search for a reason for our existence. Why are we here? Why am I here? Why did you stick me in this place? We've all been through it at some point or another. It's a thought that's been in most of us. Why me? This could be hard at times. That's easy for the mind to say. And I agree, we all come to that conclusion. You're right, we have lessons to learn. We have to take personal responsibility for the fact that we chose to come here. But it still doesn't stop a period of, I suppose, rebellion against the divine. because of the trauma of those lessons, the trauma of that learning curve, that exposure, because I mean the thing is, we're fundamentally fragile and vulnerable beings. Most of our personality is built up to conceal that fact, to not let anybody see that we're vulnerable and fragile, and that we can be very easily hurt. And the thing is, that's actually our position of greatest strength, but we think it's our position of greatest weakness.
Discussing politics and religion can cause an awful lot of discord, can't it?
Yeah, they can.
You know, it's like a subject I don't really discuss.
Yeah.
It's very personal.
Yeah.
It just causes more problems.
It does, but the funny thing is, people, like you say, they always say it, don't they? Don't talk about politics and religion. Thing is, let's look at the two most damaging things that have affected this planet. Politics and religion. We need to be talking about them, you know. Let's talk politics and religion because, you know, one of them's, you know, got a whole bunch of people killing another bunch of people, and the other one's, you know, ripping the planet apart. So I think we need to be talking politics and religion, and I think they're almost inseparable, you know. Okay, so sorry. Yeah, yeah. And some cultures they have them inseparable.
You're probably better without either.
I'm inclined to agree. I am indeed. But I mean, the thing is, you know, I think like, okay, take religion for example. The word religion comes from the Latin word religare. And religare means to bring together or to bind together. There are no religions in the world that fulfill that definition. So we don't have any religions as far as I'm concerned. We've got a bunch of ideologies that people buy into. That's it. You know, they're good, there's healthy practice in some of them. Many of them are really, really good. You know, credit where it's due. They've served humanity well over the last few thousand years. But I question their ability to serve us now.
It's the dogma that comes with it, isn't it?
Very much so. Very much so. Yeah, the essence of the actual practice is gone. It's to do with interpretation. People have interpreted, and we've ended up with practices which don't really meet our need. Okay, and that's very much what tonight's about. So, this idea of this God thing, you know, it's our biggest thing. It's the biggest sort of idea. Now, let me just check in with myself. I'm going to have to get a little drink in a second as well. Okay, so if we were to search again for this God thing, which would be a research, to search again, research. So if we were to research this God thing, you know, where would you look? Where would you go looking for this God thing? Fortunately, it's got a few qualities which everybody recognises all over the world, no matter what their belief system is. And that they have this idea that, okay, this God thing is everything. Everyone agree with that? Mm-hmm. Yeah? Would you agree it's in everything?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Should be easy to find then, shouldn't it? Why does it take us millions of people and thousands of years to find something that's meant to be in everything and is everything? What's that?
But it isn't everything.
It is. But we still don't have that collective agreement. We still don't have that shared terms to say, why are we not standing here all recognising that freely in our conversation? Why are people saying, let's not talk about religion, let's hide from the subject of God, let's not talk about it?
It's in a flower, it's in a bird on the wing.
Yeah.
It's everywhere.
But the thing, yeah. Well, we'll get onto it in a second. We'll carry on. Now, the other idea of this sort of concept of God, obviously, is it's beyond everything as well. We can't really research there. There's no need to when we can just look right in front of ourselves. So, this idea, this signpost of God, if I was to draw up now to see where it pointed to, does it point to everything? It doesn't. It points to, we have human qualities at the end of that signpost, don't we? We have ideas of vengeance, of judgment. We also have concept of love. But we have personified the idea of this God thing. And humans always personify things they can't understand at first. At first. So, we personified the weather. We personify animals. They used to talk about sharks and lions and stuff as being evil or bad or angry or things like that. Whereas now we realise they're not. They're just being lions and sharks. We talk about the weather being angry or moody or things like that. But really, there's no humanity in crashing waves. There's no humanity in clouds moving across the sky. We personified it to make it easier for us to grasp and connect to. So personification has value, but we shouldn't cling on to it beyond where it served us. And this is what we're doing with this idea of this God thing. We're clinging on to the personification when it's not serving us anymore. Like you said, It was in the flower and it's in the grass and all the rest of it. Why on earth am I giving that?
It's in the spirit, it's everywhere.
Yeah, but why are people giving that, human qualities? Why am I saying that the flower is vengeful? It's a jealous god, that flower. You know, that grass is going to have you when you're dead. It's going to judge you. That's going to decide whether you're going to heaven or hell. Exactly. We don't, because that signpost doesn't point there. That's what I'm saying. It's not pointing to the right place. It's flawed. It's a skewed, a mispointed signpost. Now I'm going to give you an example of how easy it is to repoint a signpost. So how many here were into the whole Freeman thing? Just a couple. Okay. Anybody come across the concept of corporate enslavement of humanity or an oppressive state or Big Brother state or things like that? Yeah? So you'll often be in circles who'll say, that's a conspiracy. Can't talk, that's a conspiracy. But a conspiracy is something that's hidden. There's nothing hidden about what's going on in our world. But what I've found, I mean, I've been doing talks on this stuff for years, long before the Freeman movement really happened over in this country, and I refer to things that are staring us in the face every day. So let's look at the attire people have to wear to go to work. So, well, guys at the moment, we'll get into the ladies in a bit, but excuse me a second while I just draw this. Okay. Yeah, 1 second. Okay, everyone recognise those symbols. It's a picture of a shirt with cufflinks cuffed down the bottom and a tie there. So I want you to tell me what this bit's called. What's this? It's a collar. Run that word through your head, a collar. What's this here? They're cuffs. Okay, let's think about cuffs for a second. And what's this? It's a tie. Okay, someone please tell me, who else wears collar cuffs and a tie?
Slave.
Thank you. Conspiracy? Where's the conspiracy in that? That's not a conspiracy, that's staring you in the face. And all the stuff I do is about stuff that is staring you in the face. Not on triangles and squiggles, not on imported traditions, right here, right now, real as you like. My point with this is, I've worn many shirts and ties, right from primary school. Loved it, it was great. Felt dead smart, everyone thought it was cool. I used to get compliments when I was wearing my shirt and tie. Great. Because we have forgotten. Now what gets me is, how could we have forgotten what those symbols mean? How could we have been so easily misled? Exactly. We have different grades of collar worker. White collar, blue collar, dog collar. Police are known by their collar numbers. Where's the conspiracy in that, people? Now that is how easy it is to repoint a signpost. That signpost is pointing to something that was fabric and was nice 5 minutes ago. Now it's pointing somewhere completely else. It was that easy. And that's how easy it is when you're dealing with things that are real. Because it's right there. You all know it. It's stuff that we've all used and been surrounded by our whole lives. Okay, so that's an easy signpost to repoint. God is a much harder signpost to repoint because it's buried much more deeply in our psyche. Most of the whole awareness and truth movement and all this sort of stuff that's been going on in the last few years has all been about state control. It's been about state deception, all this sort of thing. The state they've got a cushy number because most of the work was already done by the time the state came along. The church had done it all. Because now, you don't bow to the will of the state, you might go to jail. Back then, you'd be burned. You'd be dunked. You didn't buy into that ideal, that was it. You were in chances of game over. Yeah, you grew some herbs and you knew a little bit about herbs. You don't want to be that. You don't want to be a wise woman 500 years ago, do you? Incredible. So, the church had already done all the work, so all this stuff on state control and state manipulation, I do a lot of work on it, but I'm not into this angry approach, I'm not into this negative approach. Like I say, I'm about fixing the public service, I'm about saying, I'm not about blame or anything like that. I'm saying, right, okay, where are we? How do we solve the problems that face us? That's it. It's not blame, I'm not into blame culture at all, but I don't see anything wrong with making observations. And this is an observation, that's it. You draw your own conclusions from that. For me, it's pretty obvious. I need to find the lid for this pen because it's drying out. Thank you. Cheers. Starting to get a bit of a little red pen panic here. Okay, so that's how easy it is to repoint a signpost. Very, very, very easy indeed. So, obviously what we're trying to do tonight is look at this God signpost a little bit differently as well. So obviously when we're talking about something that's in everything and is everything, it should be fairly easy, but obviously we're trying to fix this signpost. So, I don't know if I was talking to you or myself there, I told you, excuse me. Right, just keeping track. How are we doing for time, by the way?
About 5 minutes. And we'll break.
5 minutes for a break? Okay, yeah, that's fine. That's perfect, actually. Okay. All of the words we've spoken about so far, other than God, obviously, they all refer to an aspect of reality, to a fragment of creation, or to a group of fragments. Okay? So when I'm referring to the chair, I use the word chair because I want you to think about the chair and nothing else. Yeah? I want to bring the chair to your attention to the exclusion of all other things. Hence the word chair. Same with everything else. I want you to think about happy things. I want you to think about happy things and not sad things, don't I? So I'm isolating out the happy things aside from everything else in the universe. But there are two exceptions to that rule of words pointing to fragments of things. The first exception is the word God, because it's meant to point to everything at the same time. But the second exception is the first word. The very first word humans ever had. Very first word. Because it was the first word, it was the only word. So it meant it had to refer to everything at the same time. Because it was the only word we had. So I think we'll actually break there, and when we come back we'll talk a bit more about the first word. Is that alright?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. How's everyone doing?
Alright?
Alright?
Sound?
Still with me?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Waiting for the word.
You have to wait a few minutes longer, but not too much longer. Not too much longer, I promise. Okay, I need to try and remember what I was going to say in the second half. Okay, so where we're up to is all the words that we normally use are for fragments of reality. So, I gave the examples earlier, talking about the chair and whatnot, the exceptions obviously being God and the first word. So the first word's a bit of a tricky thing. It's a bit of a linguistic anomaly. And linguists for many years were told that they could not get funding for any search for the first word. They couldn't get it. They've recently researched that, where they can get funding for the first word, but it's a bit of a murky philosophical debate, because what happened if you did see the first word written down on some tablet? How would you recognise it? How would you know it was the first word? How would you know how to say it? You wouldn't. And that's because they're approaching it from a linear search. They're trying to start from now and go all the way back and see if they can find the oldest writings. That's never going to be the first word, because writing obviously came later. Really what this boils down to is the linguists haven't really got a conclusion yet as to whether language is innate. So does everyone know what I mean by innate? It means it's natural. So it means it's built in. So we're born with the ability, most of us are born with the innate ability to use arms and legs. Yeah? So that's innate, it's natural, it's there. It takes a bit of practice, but most of us get the hang of it unless we have a physical disability or something like that. So they have this question of, was language innate? How do we get language? And that to me is a bit of a daft question, because how else could we have got language if it wasn't innate? It's not really something you can stumble upon. But I think it's a really easy question to answer, because let's first of all make a distinction here between the difference between a word and a random sound. A word refers to something. A random sound does not. Okay? So a word is always going to refer to something. It has meaning. Yeah? Okay. So my argument on this is that we are mammals, are we not? Yeah? Are we the only mammals on the planet? No, we've got quite a few friends, don't we? So, interesting thing about mammals is there's a few standard things about mammals. We all grow in amniotic fluid. We all grow in a womb. We're all born. Yeah? And every single mammal on the planet is recognisable by its core sound. Every mammal. Horses, what noise do they make? Does it matter what colour the horse is? Does it matter how big it is? Does it matter, which part of the world it's living in? No, it goes name, it's a horse. Cows, what do they do? Thank you. Now my Czech girlfriend would say, well, the Czech cows would say boo. It was like, well, okay, that's, subtlety of interpretation there, my dear. But yeah, in essence, yes, it's moo. Dogs. Oof. Yeah? Now let's have a look at dogs for a moment. How many different species of different breeds of dog are there? You can get these little tiny ones, you can get these massive ones, you can get all sorts. All bark, apart from, I think there's one that kind of squeaks or something like that. I don't know, there's some dingo dog as well that doesn't really make a normal noise. But in general, they're all recognisable by a core sound. So let's have a look at sheep for a moment. Okay, so to a sheep, grass is meh. I'm going over there is meh. Isn't the weather nice today is meh. Everything is an extension of that sound. They have variations, excitement, fear, fluctuations, but overall, the core sound is meh. Horses neigh, all the rest of it. So why, can anyone tell me, would we be any different? Why would we be the mute brother in the family of mammals? Why would we not have a core sound too? Now let's look at that sheep for a moment. That sheep can use that word meh to refer to everything. Anything. Almost the first word of their own, really, isn't it? And that's what I'm saying our first word is like. We can refer to anything with it. Okay? And that it's innate. So, what is the first word? Here we go, it's a drum roll time. No, I'm going to drag it out just a slightly bit longer. Just because I can. I feel power, yeah. No, not at all, not at all. There's a method in my madness, there really is. Okay, because I forgot to mention something. You know, earlier I briefly mentioned this concept of words as spells. So, I do a lot of stuff on the art of spelling, I do a lot of stuff on language, sound, alphabets, all of that sort of stuff. But what we're talking about tonight is we are talking about the most powerful spell there is. The most powerful spell there is. Because it refers to everything at the same time. Now, let's take the spell of chair. Doesn't matter how worked up I am, doesn't matter how annoyed I am, doesn't matter how moved I am, I'm never going to be able to have much oomph with the word chair. Yeah? But let's think about words spoken with anger, love, hate, things like that. We can have our own personal charge, but then in quintessential moments of pure love, or pure hatred even, we seem to tap something else. There's something beyond us, something that's larger than us that we can access from within us. And these are spells which refer to things which have substance of their own, like love. Yeah? Something that's pervasive, a force in its own right. You think about the difference of, say, using the word love, talking about loving your favourite food. I love cheese. Great. But I'm never going to be really, well, occasionally I might be really passionate about how much I love a particular cheese. But in general, it's never going to be the same as when I'm looking deep into my lover's eyes and I'm sharing how much I love them with them. Something else happens there. We use a spell to align with the subject behind it. And something moves through us.
Feeling.
Yeah, feeling. Yeah, absolutely. It is a feeling. I think for me, love is more. I mean, for me, love is more than a feeling. Yeah, exactly. But feeling is how we may experience it. Our experience of it will definitely involve feeling. So let's talk about this idea of this God thing again. What happens, do you think, when we can align with that? What happens when we have the correct signpost aligned to the correct place and we can connect with that? That's what I mean by the most powerful spell. Now, the four most powerful spells in our language are these. Okay? These are the four most powerful spells. Good and evil, God and devil. There are no four words that have been used to control behaviour, attitude and conduct than these.
Opposites.
Yeah, they're presented as a duality. And that's where we know for a start there must be something wrong. Because the concept of the idea of God isn't a duality, is it? So why are we presented with these as polar opposites? They're not opposites of each other, are they? Because we already know that the devil comes from God, doesn't it? Yeah, so why do we get them presented as this duality? And now we've got people looking for this third element, this unity. You know, people don't want duality anymore. They want to move out of duality, and they seem to think it's this third element, this third entity that we have to, or this third thing we have to, like, discover. But most of us have experienced it, we just haven't come to terms with it. Anybody here heard of M. Scott Peck? Few nods, yeah. M. Scott Peck, brilliant author, American psychiatrist. He wrote a book called The Road Less Travelled about 20 more years ago. It's a book on human love from a psychiatrist's point of view. And it's absolutely brilliant. It's in my top 10. If you've not read it, it's worth a read. But he wrote a second book called People of the Lie, which is about human evil. And he talks about coming to terms. Because to come to terms with something means to come to a name. Because a term for something is a name for it. And he's talking about in that book how we haven't come to terms with what evil is. Now, if you think about it, when we were teenagers, all of us, and somebody's asking how we feel, and we go through a phase where we're like, I don't know how I feel. It's rubbish, don't know, I'm bored, whatever. And it's because we have not come to terms with how we feel. We can't point it out to somebody else yet. And then in time we come to terms with how we feel and we can tell someone, well actually, I'm deeply affected by my childhood, or something like that, you know, whatever it might be. But then we come to terms with it. What was my point there? I can't remember. Okay, that's okay. That's alright. Yeah, signposts. Oh yes, most powerful spells. Okay, so these spells are really interesting because I don't see this as a duality anymore. This to me became a puzzle because I used to avoid breaking words up and looking at language, you know, characters and actual symbols themselves. We'll actually get down into that level in just a little bit. But let's look at these first of all. This is actually a puzzle where the answer you're looking for is hidden in it. It's hidden in it. What if I told you that the word God... Now, the interesting thing is, anybody here heard of the lost word? The lost word? Nobody? It's a Masonic term, the Masons. Yeah? The lost word was meant to be the highest, the original, and the first name for God that humans ever had. And it was lost, intentionally. Because it had the power to liberate. And people who wanted to control didn't want to be liberated. So whether it was Jews, whether it was Masons, who knows, but on texts that are like 400 odd years old or whatever, you can find the word God written with characters omitted, or words referring to all that is, where the word is like scored out, or it's just blank space. Because actually, you can read about this online, there was a conscious choice made that the word was too powerful to write down. So let's stop writing it down. But that's not enough to lose a word. How do you lose a word? You just, to fall out of your handbag when you're going home from shopping? How do you actually lose a word? Well, because you guys have a bit of background now in how words work, the way a word is lost is that it no longer points to its original subject. That's how you lose a word. It loses its reference. And deeply associated with reference is the word reverence. Now, the only thing that's different between these two words is F and V, and they're the hard and soft versions of the same sound. Reference, reverence. Okay, these things are deeply associated. So, based on the reference of something, we will have an associated reverence. And we live in a world now where there is very little reverence for lots of things. Yeah? Well, yeah. Certain schools, definitely, science really doesn't seem to have that much reverence for what's going on, for the world that we live in and all the rest of it. And we, in general, tend to lose reverence for ourselves, the way that we treat ourselves, and the way that we treat the world. Obviously, that's increasing now in this awakening that's taking place. But this is how the word got lost. It lost its reference. It doesn't mean you don't know it. It's innate. You were born with the capacity to know it. So actually, what if I told you that, now this is it, English speakers actually struggle the most with this. Non-English speakers tend to do a little bit better. And it's because our word for God is close to the right answer. Now this God is a name. It's a name because it's always capitalised. That's why on my advert for this, searching for this God thing, it's not capitalised. It's intentional. This is a name. It's almost right. Almost. It's 2/3 right. You can also write 2/3 as 66.6% recurring correct. The number of his name. The number of his name. One character is wrong. And it's so wrong that the effects of that character and our word for the infinite, the eternal, and the everlasting the effects are so powerful that they could be called evil, or live backwards, the opposite of live. And it is the de-evil. And actually, the first word for us humans is the word goo. And there's nothing I can point to and say goo, goo, and be wrong. And what I'm saying is that, so actually the story of the last few thousand years is the stories of the goos and the de-evil, which is an ending sound in our spell for that which has no end. And it is massively significant. Massively. Because we call these characters for a reason. These characters are the building blocks of our mental stuff. And how we use it determines how our mind aligns and interacts with our other aspects of self, our emotions, our spirit, our body. If they are skewed, if they are misused, then they can do damage. And they, as we talked earlier, with spells. And it also means the mind gets left out, because it's not aligned with your experience. And this is why you dismiss so much of the knowledge you were given as a child, is because it doesn't match your experience. Your internal experience of the world is larger than that mental framework you were given. So you dismiss it. Quite right. So what I'm saying is that where sheep had meh, and horses had neigh, we were jumping about going goo, goo, goo. Our tribal first word refers to anything. Now, we've gone on a long journey since we were jumping about saying goo, and it being our only word. From that word, we have cascaded into multiple languages to be able to highlight specific details of our environment, to increasingly penetrate the substance of the world that we live in and ourselves. And the journey that we're on is one of increasing penetration. That's what we're doing. We're delving into the makeup of ourself and the world. And we bring back the fruits when we come to terms with them, because then we can share it. Now, goo, in the beginning was the word, is an alchemical term. So first of all, let's cover it. In the beginning was the word, obviously. You get in the Bible, in the beginning was the word was with God, the word was God. One of the most quoted verses in the Bible, John 1:1. That middle bit, and was with. I was always confused about that. I was brought up in a Catholic church, Catholic school and all the rest of it, and I used to say, what does that bit mean? And was with. We've got all these theological, metaphorical, allegorical answers, what basically told me that nobody had a clue. But now you guys can have a clue, because you understand how words work. So, pen. So I can refer to the pen. But there doesn't need to be a pen there, and I can still refer to the pen. So the word pen is not with the pen, because you can use it separately. You can never use the word goo without goo being present. You can never use the word goo without goo being both the speaker, the medium, and the receiver. It's all goo. Now, it's an alchemical term, which means that it has more than one meaning, more than one layer of meaning. So, in the beginning was the word, has three meanings. The first meaning, there's three beginnings. The first beginning is the beginning of everything. That word. But we can't say that, because that word is the universe. Yeah? We are immersed in that word. We are immersed in that. That is the sound that is sounding forth throughout the universe, and when it stops, everything stops. But we are made in the image of the universe. Holographic, microcosmic version of the macrocosmic, all of that. Cosmic forces that flow through suns and solar systems and nebula move through us. But just filtered a little bit. Makes it tricky to handle in this vehicle though, and that's the journey that we're all on. Is how do we handle those forces moving through these vehicles? So, that's the universe. The second meaning of in the beginning was the word refers to our species, the tribal word. So in the beginning was the word when it used to be said, And I think it well predates Christianity. I think it goes back to standing stones and before, that where men and women would gather. The statement, in the beginning was the Word and the Word was good. It's a statement of camaraderie and brotherhood and shared humanity. Because it doesn't matter what language you speak, and it doesn't matter what colour you are, and it doesn't matter what creed you are. If your first word was good, then you're in with me. We're the same. Now, I'll come back to that, because that's about bridging languages. I'll get back to that in a second. So, that's the second beginning. But the third beginning is your beginning. When you were born. In this life. Yeah? Now let's look at infants for a while. Okay, so when we were born, we were all like this. We were kicking and we were spasming and we were defecating and urinating freely. We just didn't have a clue what to do with these bodies. Now, what's funny is we have this idea of a soul or an eternal part of self. And we have this concept that exists in our society that you had it before life and you have it after life. But during life, it's off on holiday. Forget it. Now, obviously, most of the people here have realised that that is a great deceit. But not everybody has. And it's certainly, even if you intellectually know it, it doesn't mean it's pervaded every aspect of yourself. So let's look at it. I call this the choice of no abstentions. It means you can't abstain. And there's a choice for picking up soul awareness. You can either wait until you die and get it then. Easy option, that one. But the other one is you can tread what's called the path of return. And every genuine development system in the world teaches this, and that is to undo what was done. To tread back along the mental and emotional pathways to when you first picked up this body, because it makes perfect sense that if you're looking for soul awareness, the closest you're going to be to it is when you first got the body, isn't it? Before you were differentiated, before you were pulled away from that state. So you look at us as infants, we've got no body awareness, but we are oozing soul awareness. We are oozing our divinity. Anybody look deeply into the eyes of an infant? Sees everything, doesn't it? Yeah? Exactly. Now let's look at some of those infant qualities. So an infant does not focus on the world around it for a while. Number of weeks for some, number of months for others. Sorry?
They're nearer to the soul.
Exactly. Now, what's interesting though is when they are born. Now for starters, that's a massively significant thing, because it then means that, you know, we don't have to look outside this life. Soul awareness is not something that is some distant ideal only for the special, or only if you're going to sit on a hill for 25 years and meditate. What a lot of rubbish. You've all had it in this life. You've all had it, every one of you. And you can get it back. Now, let's look at infant qualities for a while. So, the baby infant is not focusing on the world. It's because it hasn't managed to refine its perception yet to look at the individual details, like isolating the chair, the table, the plastic toy, the bottle. And they have, I can't remember what there's a term for it. Undifferentiated awareness. That's what they call it. It's undifferentiated. It's when an infant can't tell the difference between it and its mother. It doesn't know where it stops and the world begins. Yeah? We all had that state. But what's interesting is, that is oneness, isn't it? That's connected to everything. That's perceiving everything, because you're not differentiating. Okay? Let's look at another quality of infants. Are infants very forgiving? Do they forgive you?
Yeah.
If you violate them by taking their clothes off and changing their nappy, they might scream and freak out, but they'll happily look deeply into your eyes 5 minutes later. So they're pretty well all forgiving, aren't they? Are they accepting? They accept any environment on this planet. You can give birth to a human anywhere on this planet and it'll just accept. It's all accepting. All perceiving, all forgiving, all accepting. Someone said all knowing? Possibly?
No sense of fear.
Sorry?
They don't have a sense of fear.
They don't have a sense of fear, absolutely.
They don't,
And they're born in a state of self-love. You were born in a state of self-love.
they don't lose it until they go to school. And they start to
It varies on the individual, that one, but yeah, that can be one depending on the individual child, I think, but it does we're all individual in that respect, where our journey is slightly different. But my point is, and the last thing is, are infants very loving?
Yeah.
They're all loving, aren't they? So let's look at those qualities. All loving, all perceiving, all accepting, all forgiving.
Innocence.
Are these not divine qualities?
Yeah.
These are qualities we attribute to the divine and nothing else. And you were there. You oozed it. Every one of you. You had it in this life. That's incredible. Now, what's interesting is, that is what I call goo consciousness. It's goo consciousness. Now, we all tap it all the time. We tap it in moments of dance, song, meditation, love-making, deep thought, all the rest of it. But we move away from it, don't we? Now, the reason we did is because if you remember that image of me kicking on the mat there, you know, the problem is I've just been born into this world and I need to get about. You know, how are any of us going to carry out our mission if we cannot operate these vehicles? So we spend a year learning to make it toddle about. Quite a few years learning to master walking about. And many years to master dexterous art and whatnot. Now, we went from that spasmic kicking to a dexterous wielding of our physical body. Our emotional body, when it woke up, puberty, it's in gestation from 0 to puberty. When it's born at puberty, it does exactly the same as the physical body did. It kicks out spasms. First time you felt that first love, guilt, shame, fear, aggression. And because it was a spasm, because you didn't know what it was unfettered, it was unrestrained. But you didn't get the help to master that body that you got with the physical body. So when you fell over the physical body, someone come along and go, oh, it's all right, here you go, on you go. You had so much reassurance that you had enough to get through and become dexterous masters of your physical body. You did not get the same for your emotional body. You did not get the same for your mental body. So where that leaves us is this position where, okay, now we're in a position where we can all perambulate about, we all have a sense of self, but that something missing is what has led everybody onto their path, whatever it is, in terms of looking for fulfillment. But the thing is, it really can only be found within. And this is what I'm saying is that you can reconnect with that, not as some distant spiritual ideal, but as something imminent, practical and grounded that you had in this life. It was here. You already tap it. It's about how do we get rid of the spasming other bodies, not get rid of them, but how do we make them dexterous so that then they can all be wielded to express that inner urge that we all feel at times as to how we want to be and who we want to be. So that is obviously the journey of self-mastery, or conducting yourself as you feel moved. But the only way it can be mastered, as far as I'm concerned, is with goo consciousness. So we need to think about the word goo for a bit, because it's a bit of a silly word. That's what's great about it. You try starting a war in the name of goo. You try killing somebody in the name of goo. It can't happen. Because there's nothing you can do without, you can't use the word goo and understand it without recognising that actually, I'm hacking apart goo here, I'm hacking apart me, this is not on. Now the great thing is as well, that the thing, we live in such a world of conditioning that we all are driven to perform. And what I mean by perform is, I don't mean to exceed or to be on a pedestal or anything like that. What I mean is to conduct ourselves in an appropriate way, to look an appropriate way. You know, so there's the media images of men and the media images of women, and these have a deep impact on our subconscious at a young age that affect how we conduct ourselves now. The funny thing about this is that with the understanding of goo, it allows for a bumbling side. It allows for us all looking a little bit odd and a little bit different and maybe a little bit funny, because it's all goo, it's fine. When we look at each other, normally, we've been taught to look at parts. So you'll look at me and you'll see hair, beard, head, arms, hand. But what happens when you look at me as a whole? What am I as a whole? We don't look at that anymore. We've lost that sense, we've almost lost the capacity to look at something as whole. We just see the parts. We've lost that holistic perception. The ability to see things as a whole, sorry?
With a W.
Yes, with a W, absolutely.
Without a W, it's full of holes.
I'm sorry, I'll just get a drink. So, the thing about goo that's interesting is, so yeah, I've picked my thread back up, I found it, it was in the bottle of water. Okay, I've lost it again, how did you get another one?
Where did you get the 666 from the God from?
Because this character is correct. That's right, that's right, that's wrong. There's a percentage accuracy, 66.6. There's a recurring sign here, 66.6% recurring. Yeah, so that means 66 all the way, yeah. Okay, so that's where was it again? I do apologise. Jill going there. Now, right, what did I say a minute ago? That'll remind me.
Holistic.
Thank you. Right. That's right. So I was saying we differentiated in all these languages and all these fragments, and you know, to be able to describe the detail of things. But what we've done is we've been on this journey of exploring the physical world. Like I said, this penetration of matter. So the first whatever length of years we were on this planet, longest phase, was about physical survival and physical mastery of the environment. It still goes on now. You know, and now we're in a place where we can all be comfortable regardless of the weather outside. We can be warm or cold, depending on what we like. We can go and get a drink whenever we want. We don't have to go and get water from the stream. So all that physical stuff was done first. Then we had our emotional awakening and our emotional exploration. And now we're coming to the stage of mental and then obviously spiritual and the world of soul, which I'll talk about in a second. But what's interesting now is at this crux point where we have almost exhausted the capacity of the mind to name things. Because we're getting to the stage now in physics and science and other things where we're not talking about matter anymore. You know, we're not talking about the manifest. We're getting to that scratching point of where manifest becomes unmanifest and formless becomes, you know, form becomes formless. And we're all getting a little bit stuck. Now this is where, but what's great is that we've done a great catalogue. So when I'm talking about the search for God that's carried science and religion and theology all the way through all these years, they've been doing, you know, they've been hacking the world apart and hacking the environment apart, trying to find this God thing. But actually we've done an excellent job of cataloguing goo. And now, with the mental understanding that we've got, we can look at the world and see if this makes sense. Because I'm not dictating to you today, I'm suggesting this to you. I want you to go away and mull this over, because it has to make sense. Because if it doesn't make sense, then it can't be it, can it? You know, if I'm talking about something which is innate, then, so this is it, this is my test bed. My test bed is coming and speaking to all you lot about it and saying, well, you know, what do you think? Does it make sense? Because really, if it doesn't make sense to one of us, then that's not it. It has to make sense to all of us, you know. And what's interesting is, you know, I've had people from all sorts of nations and languages who get it and it makes sense, and that to me is what it's about. Now, the second half is always a bit drier than the first. So now I want you to imagine images of the world. So I want you to imagine bacteria in a petri dish. I want you to imagine fish in the sea, the undulating waves, clouds moving in the sky, trees swaying in the breeze. Is goo a fair term for that? That moving amorphous substance that we live in? Because the thing is, now, the science realises we're not living in a world of objects. They recognise that we're living in a world of energy. There is no gaps in our environment here. There's no gap in between. There's no space. There's no void between you and I. Where I finish, the air begins. Where the air finishes, you begin. There's no void there. There's no void there at all. That swimming energy, that swimming, moving, so what I'm saying is this is a living, breathing, intelligent, aware goo substance that we live in.
Creation.
Sorry?
Creation.
What about it?
That's part of creation, isn't it?
Yeah, all of manifestation, all of creation. I like, there's a guy called Walter Russell did a book called The Universal One, and back in mid-1920s, and in it he talks about there's not being a created universe, but a creating one. Because it's an ongoing process. The cup of evolution didn't start half empty and is filling up. No. All the stuff that was there 5 million years ago is here now. Nothing's been added, nothing's been taken away. It's all changed its form. This is why I say we don't need to delve into 5,000-year-old traditions to find enlightenment, because it's all here, right now. And it's what every single spiritual text in the world has said. You don't need to go anywhere, you don't need to do anything, it's staring you in the face. And it is. So, if I cut open my body and all these innards fall out, is goo a fair term for what that might be? If I look at a bowl of porridge, is goo a fair representation for what's in there? You know? All of these things, that bacteria in the petri dish, the stars in the sky. We live in an illuminated, aware, breathing, living goo substance. And the thing is, what this does for me is, this actually ties together human knowledge. It ties together the findings of science with the ideology of theology. Except, one is missing the reference, and the other is missing the reference. So science is actually, most scientists get goo quite easily because they're like, yeah, I work with it every day. It's goo. But the reverence isn't there. If you're starting to laugh, it means you're starting to get it, because it is liberating in its humour, in its simplicity. And if you think about it, it has to be simple. Because how could something complex be the answer to it? It couldn't be. Because we would be limited by our mental awakening or anything. I've worked with autistic people, and I've worked with people with all sorts of learning difficulties and all this sort of stuff. And everybody can say goo unless they've got a particular, an actual speech impediment of some kind. And it doesn't matter where in the world babies are born, they have the capacity to say that word goo right from the beginning. But what's different is it's about the immanence of the awareness of the divine in this substance. So if you now recognise that if we could see the molecules of the air swimming between us, and we could accept, yeah, okay, that's a bit gooey. Yeah, okay, yeah, I could say that, I could agree that's gooey. But to give that the credit of being imbued with divine awareness, with the awareness of the whole, that is what we are missing in terms of our understanding of the immanence of the divine. Here and now. You don't need to go anywhere. When you're lying in bed at night and it's just you in the duvet, and you've not had such a good day, you've maybe had a nice cup of hot chocolate and you're all snuggled up there warm, that is just you and your goo. That's it. Nobody else is there. And what I try to get across to people is that this is a personal relationship. Goo has a personal vested relationship for you. You're all here by divine mandate. You were born. You were dreamed forth by this universe for a purpose. You have value and you have worth. And the universe has shown an interest in you, and a personal one. Even though you may feel rejected or turned away by society or your friends or whatever, the universe has shown an interest in you because you have made connections in your life. You've met people at odd times who have then gone on to do other things, great things with them. You've been wandering along and maybe something's just caught your eye. That is goo, because how can goo not know what situation you're in when the very substance of your body, your emotions and your mind is goo? That's the point. So these connections are made, and we call it synchronicity, we call it the universe looking after us. That is goo, that's the point. It's in those little moments of connection that actually, this is goo speaking to us. Like the lady there was talking about it earlier, she was talking about when she goes to sleep at night, she'll sometimes see things and she's asking what it is. To me it's goo. This is goo, and it will speak to you in whichever way. People always often ask me after this talk, well, so what do we do in terms of, getting closer to goo or whatever? Goo is not a deity that you have to perform fixed ablutions to. It's not an archetype. This isn't a personified entity here that I'm talking about. You are the divine agent in your life. You decide how you want to express that relationship with goo. If you feel bitter and resentful about your life, then your life is going to play out like that. And it's going to be filled with bitterness and resentment, and that is you and your goo. So when people say to me, goo's a pile of rubbish, I'm like, absolutely, yes, it is. Because goo is absolutely everything. And for me, it's about us retranslating in our heads all the qualities we gave to God and attributing it to goo, but all the positive ones. Because really, that means that we live in a benevolent, loving, personally interested space. I mean, let's look how many people are in this room. 20 odd? Yeah, so we've got 20 odd people here. Every one of you has been catered to your entire life, where your needs have been met. You might have wanted more. You might have had some pretty difficult times. You might have felt that you were being pushed right to your limit, but goo will never push you beyond that limit. Ever. We just sometimes think we're being pushed beyond our limit, but we are not, and we're being tested on that. That's the point, is to make us, it's to bring us to blossom, basically. But the point is that benevolent interest is there. Now I want you to think about this town, then this country, then this world, then all the animals, the plants, the solar systems, the other planets, the life forms there. Every single one being guided, instructed, the right connections happening at just the right time, the right synchronicities going on. That is incredible. That's an incredible state of organisation. That is goo. That is what I am talking about. It is incredible. For it to be personally interested in each and every one of us, that is an awareness that is staggering. And this concept, this change of word, this change of the spell, the signpost. I mean, I'm standing here, we talked earlier about signposts, and collar cuff tie, easy to change, But to change the word, the signpost that lies, the one thing that lies beyond our concept of the universe before creation, to change that signpost, it's a bit of a kung fu match, It's like there's many, many ways to approach it, and I can only pick a few to come and give to you in what is essentially an introductory talk. But it's a massive subject, it's incredible, it's awe-inspiring. And to perform that translation in your head suddenly creates, or moves to create, that situation I was talking about earlier where we change our alignment. And we can begin to align with that is in everything. And because it's innate, because it's there, it really is the most powerful spell. It's incredible to see the change that change I've seen in people over the years with this, but all I can ever do is extend an invitation, because there's one part of you, I call Goo the pacifier, but the thing is, it's the lost word, it's the first word, it's the last word, because it sums up everything quite well, but it is just a password. It's a password to the state of soul awareness and beyond. It creates a bridge, and it's only by using it that bridge can be created. It's about that alignment thing again. You know, if you're never going to enter into a space of love, how are you going to experience deeper love? You can't. Yeah, you've got to start somewhere and then sort of begin with it. So, obviously, your minds are doing a lot of mulling over at the moment. But I want to delve a little bit into the real, so what happens beyond the password stage, just for a minute. How are we doing tonight?
Right, fine.
Fine. Okay, so, wait a second. Okay. What is that?
Circle.
Oh, you're a cheeky one. Brilliant, brilliant. Easy cop-out answer every single time. You've now got it. Yeah, okay. But what else is it? In a narrower, more refined sense. Yeah. A circle. Okay, what else? A sphere.
It's a spiral.
Well, that one's not meant to be a spiral. That one is meant to be a
It's a spiral
circle.
because it's unable to end up where it first started.
Well, no. If we say that a circle actually can, because a spiral's a different thing. A spiral and a circle aren't the same. We'll get to that in a minute, because we'll do spirals in a moment. Okay. Sorry? A ring. Thank you. Yes. Anything else?
A wheel.
A wheel. Yes. Loads. We'll keep going, can't we? Yeah.
Planet.
So, it's a what?
A planet.
A planet. Yes, it is. Absolutely. Okay. So I'm going to do this now. Can everybody see okay? I know you can. I'll actually tell you as we're going along. Purely for you. Don't worry about it, honestly. Okay. Okay. So, my pen is fading as well. Okay. So what I'm doing, the other things didn't get wiped out very well, so actually we just got a big mess here. Right. A big pile of goo, absolutely. Right, but now I'm going to isolate some details of the goo. Yeah. Okay, so we have a triangle, a circle, a square, we have 0, 1, 2, 3, and we have the word orange. Okay? There's an echo in the room. No, this is the same shape, isn't it? But how your mind processes and thinks about shape, compared to how your mind thinks about and processes number, compared to how your mind thinks about and processes words, are completely different. They're completely different modes of operation of the mind. The thing that gives a shape its meaning is its context. It's its relationship. What is it in relationship with? That is it. That is the key. So, what we have here is that basically all letters, all numbers, all characters are shapes first. Your extra interpretation comes afterwards. You will see the shape before you interpret, that's a 1. Yeah, because 1 can be done in other ways as well, couldn't I? If I was doing a math sheet or something like that, and I'd done that, then you would think, well, it's a 1. But if I was writing a word and I just did that, you'd think, well, that's an L, or it might be I, depending on the context. Same shape, isn't it? Yeah? Now the thing is, shapes operate on our consciousness. I call the characters are like oscilloscopes for the mind. Like I say, I do stuff about decoding the whole alphabet, and all alphabets actually. Now, what's really interesting about it is that there are some common threads of meaning. Now, I don't have time to go into the background of it just now. I think we're approaching the hazard point here. This is getting terrible. That blue, I'm not going to use that blue anymore, it just doesn't wipe off. Okay.
So,
So-
get some water through or something.
No, it's okay, we'll get through. Yeah. Right, thanks for the offer though. So they're all shapes first. Now, I don't have time to go into the background of why it is, but I'm going to just have to tell you that this shape here represents soul, okay, or form. or
What shape is that?
manifestation. Sorry?
What shape? Circle.
It's a circle, yeah. So circle's a very old shape in our awareness, and yes, it does relate to wholeness, manifestation, things like that. Okay, now, what I'm going to do is, it's all a bit tricky this bit, because we've had to skip by some of the stuff that I would do, which is deeper on sound and language to get here. But you all heard the term, we're made in the image of the word.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, magic. Right, so I'm going to say that this is lower self, or the world of personality, the world we live in every day. So we have physical. I'm going to say, you might have heard other chakra models. I use this model because it's simple, everybody gets it. So this is emotional, and this is lower mind or intellect, that fiery realm of, also known as the will. But it's also the place of the lower mind. It's interesting as well, because actually just last year scientists did find brain-like cells in the stomach lining, which is bizarre. But anyway, then we have the world of the higher self, or the soul. You see, these are trinities. So you've got three worlds. I call them world sets. They're world sets because you can operate in this world set here, in the world of body, emotions, and mind, and you can, or lower mind, and you can get by, you can have children, you can do well in the world, and all the rest of it, without ever really awakening anything up here. Okay? But then if you do manage to break through the veil and blah, 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 start to get the awakenings up here, this is the second trinity, the second world set. And then we have the crown and beyond, which actually leads on to the next realm. Okay, the way in and the way out, as it were. Not called the crown for no reason, not called the temple for no reason. These things are not accidental. So, on our route to the temple, as it were, we have these sets. So, made in the image of the word actually relates to, I suppose you could say, an overlaying of the word to help you understand it a little bit. So, before I do that, I want to put this shape next to that shape. What is the relationship, or what is the difference between that shape and that shape? Okay? It's always somebody says
One's
broken.
progressive, the other's contained.
Okay, one's progressive, the other one's contained. Okay? They're different though, aren't they? But there's a relationship there, isn't there? Because you could just kind of like pull this bit out, and you'd have a circle, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Okay. So, obviously we call this, it was also known as a capital letter G, isn't it? Now, on this one, it's clearly defined what's inside and what's outside, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's inside the circle, what's outside the circle. It's quite straightforward to see.
Golden mean.
Sorry?
Golden mean.
Yes. The golden mean, your golden mean doesn't really apply to the circle in this instance, but the golden mean does relate to what we're about to look at on the G. Okay, so on the G, the inside and the outside is not as clearly defined, is it? In fact, you can't tell the difference. It's open, yeah? The G is at the heart of every spiral. The spiral is everywhere in nature for a reason. It represents the balance of masculine and feminine energy in movement, in living movement. So you could say that the masculine is often portrayed as being the line and the female as a circle. The combination of the line and the circle is a spiral. It's a circle that never completes itself. Yeah? So, in relation to, this is jumping ahead because this is like second talk stuff. I thought I'd chuck it in there for you all. But this is the sacred geometry of it. Letters and characters and alphabet are sacred geometry. It's the sacred geometry of the mind. If you want to understand what real masonry is about, this is masonry. This is the building of mental frameworks, the building of structures, the building of solid structures that can survive things. So it's like the arch shape in masonry is the strongest shape, which we use in the letter N, M, and other things like that. There's reasons that we do this, and it's all about how shapes operate in the mind. We don't have time to go into all of that today, but this brief introduction should give you a sense as to why it is this word, what the meaning of it is. Because really what we have up here is G. To understand what the G is, I want you to think about chi. Very similar sound, G and chi. Not accidental. And it's because that concept that they have in the East of the life force, of the spirit that pervades everything, that has no barriers between it, that is what the G is all about. It's the father that pervades everything. So we're obviously crossing traditions here, but we have to match our tradition up to show how it relates to theirs. Interestingly, the Mayans, I didn't find this out until I've been doing this for years, but the Mayans revered the letter G beyond all of us. G, O and T were their three favourites. G for them related to the gateway to cosmic consciousness. I was blown away when I learned that, because I was like, I've been saying that for years, brilliant. So what's great is, so in Mayans use a square G though. So you'll often see them do these sort of patterns like that. And it's to do with that, and they'll have the G on their cheeks, because they used the G. It was massively significant to them, which really gave me a bit of reassurance. Trust me, when I started doing this stuff, believe me, any reassurance was useful. Okay, so they used the G and the O, very interestingly. And for me, it very much is the way in and the way out. It's about the Spirit, it's about the Father aspect of the Trinity. Then we have the Son. Circle, the soul. Okay. Now the thing that's gone kind of wrong is the fact that we have the letter D down here. Now, or I should capitalise it, shouldn't I? There's really interesting things to do with uppercase and lowercase that I could talk about for weeks, but I'm not going to do that today. Right. So if I do a D here, okay. So I've done the D like that for a reason. I can't tell you the reason today, but if you just accept it from me for now, I've done the D like this for a reason. So it's side on compared to the rest, but I'll cover that in future years. So the problem here is that this letter, this character, the D, is partly the cause of the problem of the sense of distance with the divine. Because, and then we need to look at where we use the letter D. What do we use that character for? What's its quality? What's the character of D? We use it in words like death, destruction, devastation, disease, don't, yeah, all of these sorts of stuff. It's not a bad letter, it's very useful. That's the point. There's no bad letters, it's a useful letter, but it has to be in the right place at the right time. Why do we have an ending sound in our word for that which has no end? Why? If you look at some of the Eastern languages, they don't use ending sounds. That's why they have that kind of wah 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 sound to us. It's because they don't use ending sounds. Or if they do, they use them very carefully. And this is about the art of spelling. This is something that we are so casual and lackadaisical with. And you see it in many texts. Be careful about what you say. Be careful with what you say. Be careful of your words. The words that we use are our second. It's our creative centre. Okay. So the first creative centre is down here. It's not actually creative. It's procreative. It's reproductive. That's different to creation. That's reproduction. Yeah? Just be a second. So that is different. Now what's interesting is that there's a good theory on why humans have hair in certain parts of their body, and it's to do with their creative centres. So the divine centre here has hair sprouting out all the time. It doesn't mean anything if you're balding, still be creative. I always have to put that in because it is true. But the thing is, we also have hair sprouting out down here for our procreative centre. But then the second centre, which becomes creative, which only becomes creative after we've done some work, is here, the throat. This is why men have this hair that can sometimes be a bit like pubic hair growing up out here. Women don't have it because their energy at this level is internalised, men's is externalised. That's why men's bits point out, women's bits point in. And it's to do with how creative force moves through us. That's a gender conversation. But the point here is that this is the creative centre. Because you think about the atmosphere you can create with sound, with loving words, compared to with words of anger, with how you treat things. Anybody here seen the work of Masaru Emoto? Yeah? Okay, so he's talking about words' effect on water in the crystalline structure. What percentage of your body is water?
90.
Okay, so if you're chucking thoughts of hate and anger and weakness and punishment and abuse against yourself, what shape do you think those crystals are forming? Not the friendliest. Now he's looking at it purely from the effect of the word itself. I want to know if any of you have heard of the science of cymatics. Few nods. Look it up. Cymatics. It is a staggering. Why we do not have cymatics in school is a crime. Cymatics is about 40 or 50 years old by a guy called Dr. Hans Jenny, and it is about the effect of sound on matter. And what they do is, they take a plate, a metal plate or a glass plate, not a dinner plate, and they put powder on it, and then they fire a tone through that. As they change the tone, the shapes, the powder adopts shapes, but it adopts complex geometric patterns. And as you increase the frequency of the tone, the complexity of the pattern increases. up to like flower lifestyle stuff.
There's one
They've
that
managed
even makes a humanoid shape.
Is there? I've not
There's a
seen
tone
that
that
one.
makes a sort of head and
Wow.
a humanoid sort of shape.
I'd like to see that one. I've seen ones that actually portray moving vertebrae, trilobite shells, turtle shells, all sorts of stuff.
Didn't they do the water molecules that change through the tone and that's
Yeah, they do it with water as well. Yeah, absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
non-Newtonian liquids as well. If you put those on a speaker, they do similar
Yeah, they'll do
sorts of
stuff
things.
as well. And it is incredible. It is well worth a watch. Now, the thing is that, you know, it shows that really matter is formed out of sound. That it's a range of complex harmonies and frequencies that maintain the shapes and the structures, because they've shown it in cymatics. What's fascinating is that so if I put on like this, yeah, the funny thing is I do a lot of work about sound, about using sound to heal, because it's our creative centre, we can use it to heal. And all the words we've been talking about tonight have been what I call horizontal sound. They refer to things. Certain sounds are vertical sounds that don't refer to things. We use them for changing vibration. Om is one of them. The reason why most Westerners don't sit and do sound practice is because when they sit down and do it, they feel self-conscious. And they say, why am I doing it? This is stupid, this is pointless. Because your mind is trying to follow a signpost and it's not a bloody signpost. And it means we miss out on an extremely powerful spiritual practice that can really easily facilitate our awakening, because our mind is standing on the sideline judging it, saying this is pointless. But it's trying to use a signpost. So this sound though is broken up into two parts. It's aw and it's There's a reason why it's in two parts, but it's not a word, it's two sounds, aw and When the human voice makes the sound aw, just that, in cymatics, the sound that is created in powder is this. Makes that shape. Or this, depending on the substance that you're using. That's incredible. It's amazing. Could be an atom, could be an egg. Universe. I mean, I talk about soul awareness, yeah, that we had as infants, but I don't say S-O-U-L, it's S-O-L-E. It's soul awareness, the awareness that we are soul. Using the Om and Om can facilitate this formation in matter, this organisation of our makeup. And this is where, I've just looked at this board now and I'm like, whoa, I didn't plan on doing this tonight. This is way, way more technical. Okay, so in relation to these components of the word can all be used as mantric sounds as well. I suppose that's the shortcut there. So, if I change that from a D to an O, what that represents in terms of spirit, soul, and down here is manifestation, the Holy Ghost or whatever, it actually has its own symbol, but we don't cover that until we've got goo and that's nailed down, so just have to bear with me for now. But what this represents in terms of us using it is, it represents the manifestation of the soul in the lower world. Did I say that very fast? I sounded mumbled there. I'll say it again. It represents the manifestation of the soul in the lower world. Here. In our everyday life. Now at the moment in your daily life, you will get fragments and moments where your soul is speaking through you, speaking as your inner self. It happens, it's there. You might be having that in an increasing fashion. What I'm saying is that by the use of this word and this spell, you can make that happen much, much, much more often. You can invoke a magical life upon yourself. Because it is the word of liberation. That was the point, the whole point. Do you think a few thousand years ago some guy going around talking about a thing called God was new? No. Not at all. I honestly believe that, the word was and always has been goo. And it was intentionally concealed because, with an understanding of it. I mean, goo is not hierarchical. We're not above each other. If we strip off all our clothes, we're all just goos next to each other. Who's in charge? Who's the posh one? Who's the one who's better off? Doesn't work. It can't fit with the people who want to feel power over rather than power with. And the universe is built on a flat hierarchy. So what that means is we're not above the grass or below it. We're beside it. We're side by side with the grass, the beetles, the animals, us, the planets, the solar systems. Everything has a role to play. It's equal. Equal, flat hierarchy. Now this is what goo can bring forth. And I'm being dead mental and dead technical and all the rest of it just to try and get it into your head. But really I'm talking about something which is really very beautiful and touching and moving and liberating and tear-inducing at times and laughter-inducing at times. And you know, I hope you get a chance to experience all those moments with that word, because it can be remarkably liberating to just be like, it's goo. That's it. Simple. What a doddle. Oh, I can relax. Thank goodness. I don't have to do a performance anymore. It's an incredible thing. So, in wrapping up, how do we use this word goo? How does it work? Well, first of all, I talked about translation. Translation takes a lot longer than you think. When I first had the experiences where goo came to me and it was shown that the word was wrong and all the rest of it, it really messed my life up. Really messed my whole world up, I'll tell you that for nothing. But, you know, it was worthwhile in the end, I suppose. But it took me months, years to integrate, and I haven't finished. I haven't finished translating within myself, remapping mental pathways and emotional pathways to feel that solace of connection with the whole, with goo. That takes time. So translation is one of them, internal translation. Sound, using the sound, using the word, using it in mantra, using it instead of the word God, actually has an effect. It's a spell. But obviously, the interesting thing about it is that the one part of us that doesn't like the word goo is part of our mind. Doesn't like it because it likes the effects of the deed. It likes being a god. It likes the chance of power over. It likes the chance of greed and acquisition. We all have it in us. And part of us likes it. And that's the part that will be rebelling against this, because this thing goo is so simple. It pervades everything. It's actually the simplest thing in the world, and I've just given you a bit of a hint into how it's actually one of the most complex as well at the same time. And it's actually both, you know, the two petals of the third eye? I am simple, I am complex. We all have both. And we're constantly stuck in the war between the two. So now when I think with goo, sometimes I'm like, oh, it's all simple and great. I get a bit too casual, a bit too relaxed. I have to remind myself, it's more complicated than that. And then when I'm getting lost in the complexity, I'm like, oh my goodness, I am overwhelmed. It's like, oh, it's simple. Simple, really. I can keep myself on track, just like that, yeah. So, there's that translation, you know, thinking about it, mulling it over, letting it sink in, letting it digest. You know, collar cuff tag, you never look at collar cuffs and tag the same way again. But that's a very superficial, surface word and concept. This is very, very deep. Give it reverence and time and respect. Yes?
Do you think you'd look at God again if you started calling him goo?
I don't know what you mean.
I think that I would disrespect him if I started praying tonight and I started calling him goo, I'd feel a bit...
See, that's your conditioning. That's the thing. So I think, I explore that, be with that, go with that, because yeah, you will, because so you're going to feel disrespected,
like
and then what you might feel.
Yeah.
Sorry?
There's not
Start
only
calling him
that.
goo.
Yeah.
I think I might be disrespecting him a bit.
See, that's what's interesting.
There's not only that. You can think of them as the all, or the oneness, or the
Yeah.
source of all life.
Yeah,
It's all
but
the same. Or the creator.
it's the same, but none of those are innate.
No.
None of those are the same for all humans. So the one thing...
People describe them, don't they?
Yeah.
I do see your point.
But that's the point. Now this is the really, really, really difficult bit for our minds to grasp. Because we started from the word God in the world in the English language, we're thinking of the word goo as a name or as a word. It is not a word in any language. It is an innate sound that can be rendered as the word goo. That is not a name. It's not a word in our traditional sense of it. It's different, it's unique, it stands on its own, it's different from all the others.
I think the word goo's got negative connotations though nowadays.
It does now.
Absolutely.
It does.
A goo is an ooze, it's something you
Yeah.
don't want to touch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's become,
Yeah.
but what's really interesting is that, you're right, because the word goo is in every, right, I told you, flailing and everything would happen. Yeah. I warned you.
It is the first thing the child says.
Yes, this is my point, and that doesn't matter where the child is in the world. But the other thing I wanted to say was that, I had it.
Negative connotations.
And that is a new soul, isn't it? So.
Well, they're not all new, that's the thing.
No, but I mean, it's a soul that's just come into the world, isn't it? And
Very much so. And it's born with the innate ability to refer to its environment. Yeah. And that's it, it's a reference. Now it's, yeah, word in any language, that's the thing. Okay, so the word goo exists in every single language in the world in a different place. In Japan, goo.com is one of the biggest search engines they've got. On that page, goo.com, everything is Japanese or Chinese or whatever it is. I can't remember which word it's Japanese or Chinese, which site it is. I think it's Japan.
Google.
Goo is, yeah, exactly.
Oh my goodness.
None of these things are, yeah. It's an interesting one, that one. Goo Goo Dolls and all the rest of it, yeah. There was actually a race called they called themselves the Goo Goos in somewhere in the South Pacific Islands, but they were eradicated. They were actually, there was genocide by the American military about 60 odd years ago, wiped them out because they referred to themselves as the Goo Goos. That was what they called themselves as a tribe.
So is that the mice? Is that the word? Is the last word?
That's what I'm saying. Is the word goo, yeah. Now,
Yeah.
it is a bit difficult again, like I said, because the thoughts that you're all giving are all very valid. But getting it into your heads that it's not a word in the traditional sense, it's not a name in the traditional sense. And what's interesting is, like you said, as soon as you start to try using it, it will put you up against your conditioning. It will put you up against exactly how conditioned you've been in respect of this. Because like you said, you might feel a bit guilty that you're disrespecting. And what might be the consequences of that?
You'll
What
be
might
changing
be...
your thought.
Yeah, exactly. And this is what did I say at the beginning? This is mental healing. That's the point. You know? Yes.
I've already got a relationship with God,
Uh-huh.
so to call him good,
Yeah.
I find it disrespectful.
Sure.
So I've got to change my way of thinking, but what do I do with good?
Use it in exactly the same way
I
as you
think
do
you
the word
feel the
God.
same like I do.
Yeah, and what's interesting is I mean, that's the thing, one of the things that we have a habit of doing is we create this intellectual expectation of ourselves. So we'll learn something new and we'll suddenly set the bar in our mind as to how we want to be. But that doesn't accommodate our emotional reality. It doesn't accommodate the fact that we're creatures of habit and that we have to respect and tolerate and be patient with ourselves. Be a bit gentler. Be just enough and no more. The universe isn't, goo isn't out there hammering it, I'm not here to tell you must use the word goo. No, not at all.
Say for example, I pray tonight, I say to
Yeah.
God, I'm not calling you God anymore, I'm calling you good.
Are you okay with that? Why don't you say
And
that?
he knows me anyway, so that's
Yeah.
what I'm going to put
I'm
it
going to
him.
try it as
Yeah,
well.
exactly. Ask. Exactly. Don't ask me, ask goo. He's everywhere. That's the thing. See how you feel. This is what I meant earlier about making sense. And it's about personal
You
responsibility.
shouldn't, is there?
Sorry?
There's no reason why you shouldn't.
Yeah, this is the thing. And all I'm asking is, experiment. Try. If you don't like it, fine. Don't mind. I'm not going to be offended. I'm not going to be upset if you don't get it or if it's not right for you. I've sat and had such heated debates with my sisters and mother about this. It's brilliant.
I have used the word goo hundreds of times.
Yeah.
Because when I do packing mash with the kids,
Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
Yeah,
Now this is
goo on here.
what's really interesting is that in English, the word goo has been relegated to referring to basically a formless substance. Yeah? It's absolutely accurate. It's accurate.
The word's got no substance for the meaning of the word, is it?
Yeah.
I mean, as it's defined like goo or a gooey mess.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
much could you explain
How
that
is
to
that
your child
reflective or
when they're growing up?
explanative of the word, of the condition of goo, whatever it might be?
It would probably be in the some crossword.
How could you teach your child? Goo.
How do you teach them?
You already know.
Easy.
I know they know it, but
Yeah.
when you're trying to teach your child their prayers,
Well, this is the thing. Praying is a conditioned way of, it's a structured, ritualized way of referring.
I mean, yours is different when you
Yeah,
grow up.
but when you're so what you're talking about is you're talking about praying, right? So you're saying so where do we get the idea of praying from? What is the format of praying? Do you kneel? Do you hold your hands in a particular way?
No,
Do you start off in a particular
just
way?
thought
No,
for me.
exactly. So what I'm saying is talk to people all the time. Why do you have to call it praying? Why do you have
I
to create
don't.
a separate container?
It's
Exactly. So what I'm saying is when we're talking about bringing up children, I wouldn't say now we're going to create this separate space that's different from the rest of the world where we're going to talk to the divine, but the rest of the time we're not. Because this is what we've done wrong in our society. We've separated everything out so that people leave the humanity at home when they go to work. They're then obnoxious and hide behind their job while they're at work. They're not paying attention. They're not present. They're just waiting to get home at the end of the night. Then when they go home at night, they're one particular way with their kids, another particular way with their folks, and then when they go out with their mates in another particular way. And then we only keep spirituality for between 7 and 9 on a Tuesday night, or for 11 till 12 on a Sunday. Sorry.
And they stop them watching the television.
Stop who?
Points. What's your point?
Well, instead of, that's what happens usually, isn't it? You push them in front of the television.
Yeah, they'll drop them in front of the TV rather than actually taking responsibility, absolutely. But what we're doing is, if you are a spiritual being, then you're a spiritual being all the time. Why are you saving it for a yoga class or for church on a Sunday morning? What are you? Take ownership of it.
It's with you all day.
You're in some dialogue.
Yeah.
And that's what creates either your
Absolutely.
and
What's
also
that?
the vibration that you might just put out and
Yes.
might receive back, because it's all about that.
Yeah. And this is that spasming of those bodies, the goo of those bodies, absolutely. And this is the problem, this is where the whole conduct mastery and self-mastery is, that's what it's all about.
Because we are magical beings, aren't we?
Exactly.
We create heaven and
Yeah, we're magical, spiritual, divine beings all the time. And we can bring that divinity and that spirituality into our everyday life if we have the right tools. So tonight, I've obviously just talked about the word goo and all the rest of it, but I do workshops on ways for us to regain our goo consciousness. That consciousness we had as infants. It was yours, it was already there. So I do one on perception, which is all about how we can restore our natural vision.
manifestation.
Sorry?
It's manifestation.
Manifestation of ourself, yeah, absolutely. Well, if you think about it,
Love in all its manifestations.
It's interesting.
Isn't it, love?
It's interesting.
how do I keep up with this? Yeah, sorry, go on.
I say it's love in all its manifestations.
Absolutely. Yes. So, sorry, what time is it?
Oh, sorry.
I thought you, no, I want to know.
10:15.
10:15, okay. So go again. So the stuff on perception is about restoring that extra visual awareness that we have innately, that's in us. The stuff on sound and language is about breaking down the mental frameworks, recapturing our raw mental awareness. I do stuff on using sound, which is about changing our vibratory rate, but in a way in which the mind is aligned, so that you can actually get the maximum benefits of cymatic effect and emotive effect, and actually changing the structure of our bodies, basically, the substance of our bodies. And then the rest of the stuff I do is all about piecing together our knowledge and our understanding. So, the journey is about self-mastery no matter which way you choose to pursue it. And like I said, I don't mind if you take the word good, just say, okay, that was interesting. A few interesting points I thought there. I'm happy with that, that's fine. If you're inspired and think, wow, that's great, it's obvious, now I can see it. How could I have missed it in the first place? It was so obvious all along, which is what some people, that's the experience they have with it. I'm fine with that too. More than anything, what I want to get across is about the immanence of the divine, the fact that I have I've just given you some of the roots to understanding that the word is good tonight. I couldn't have covered them all because it's a massive subject, but hopefully you'll see that actually I'm presenting something that's at least semi-coherent here, and you're not going to get that same coherence in argument as to why the word is God. Why is the word from the beginning God? Why? Because that's just a name in a language, just like Allah, Brahma, Yahweh, whatever. I'm saying this word is different because it's not that, and I'm giving a reason why, and I'm saying to you, if it makes sense, then I'm kind of hinting that it could be significant. That's pretty much it. Yeah. So I think what I'll do is I will, if we wrap it up if you're all right, if I wrap up there, I hope you've got something really, a lot out of this. If you do have questions, we'll just maybe have just a couple of minutes for a toilet break or whatever, and then do questions because I need to go. But yes, sorry, go on.
Well, I was going to say that, what is it? Be careful what you speak, because with your words you create your reality.
Absolutely.
And the good thing is this, that we are told, somebody said a while back, that to be totally free we have to be like little children. And if they use the word good, then it's fucking good enough.
I like it, it's been brilliant. Now, there was something else I was going to say. Oh yeah, just in closing, in terms of our route to unity, okay, if you imagine here, I'm not going to draw up, if you just picture, in fact it's already there, good, evil, yeah? Now what's interesting is that this good, evil thing, yeah, as spells, if we never got to the end of good, so it's still there, you see it, G-O-O-D, yeah? So really, goo represents a spell of never-ending good. And anything on the other side is what we call the evil, the devil. Now the archetypes of that's, again, you could study with it for weeks with me if you wanted to, but, unity, liberation, all these things, I hope they sounded at least a little bit interesting. So yeah, I've got some workshops coming up in Glastonbury this weekend. I'm not going to be doing any more for a while because maybe on the way I'm not going to have time to organise. But I'll still be doing invitations, so I have a mailing list you can add yourselves to if you like. I also have some CDs with me, which this is a meditation and mantra CD. It also has a booklet with it, which tells you all about how words work, how sound works, how to make sound work for you, and then how to use it. So very welcome to that. Those are £15 if you're working, 10 if you're not. And then I have these goo booklets, which cover some of the stuff we've covered tonight and a little bit more in there as well. These are £4 if you're working, 3 if you're not. So you can come up and have a look at them if you like. Anything if they'll do, and then we'll maybe do questions if that's all right. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you're all well in the head after that. Cheers. Back for a second.